Okay, dear audience members, welcome back on the platform where we will be able to interact and have some more discussions. So welcome to the deep dive session 2, in which you will be able to talk more on today. Here in this topic is about smart mobility on the specific topic collaboration for multimodal transportation systems. So you had this inputs from our speakers earlier today. And after these presentations, this session will give you as an audience a further opportunity to interact with all the speakers from all the cities, Jakarta, Berlin, and Bangkok. And this feedback will be then also utilized to further co-design pilot initiatives with the Smart Change project. So in this session, again, just to remind you who was all here, so we have our speakers who are sharing from the respective cities. We have Ms. Faela Sufa as a Southeast Asia Director of the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. Then we have Mr. Sebastian Wolf as Project Lead of Jelbi, and Dr. Yossapong Laoonual as Head of Mobility and Vehicle Technology Research Center, or MOVE, from the King Mongkut University of Technology, Dongguri. Now, this deep dive discussion will be led by Mr. Ramos Pandia as Chief Operating Officer of Hukum Online, which you already see to my right. And hereby, I give the floor to you, and the screen is yours.
Thank you, Mira. Good afternoon, Berlin, and good evening, Jakarta. Thank you very much for the opportunity. As mentioned earlier, this is our deep dive session where all of us can discuss and participants can ask questions. You can raise your hand, or also you can put questions on the Q&A chat room. As seen in the conversations, there is a Q&A. You can post your question there, and I will put and mention the question to the speaker. All right. To start our discussion, I would like to go to Ibu Faela first. So you mentioned earlier in your presentation there are details for the integration in Jakarta. First is the physical integration, payment integration, which include intermodal fare integration, and third one is the operational integration, or the company, lots of holding company, and how this will be under one company. So, looking at this landscape and situation, Ibu Faela, how ready is Jakarta to implement, multimodal apps like Jelbi in Berlin? Uh, we have Jaki right now as our super apps for smart city in Jakarta. Is a suitable candidate for these multimodal apps, or should we have another new apps that is focusing on a multimodal system and recommendation? Thank you, Ibu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the questions. So actually, we have already have Jaki application which provide a lot of information for Jakarta, but it's kind of like a more broader information. It's not specific for transportations. Currently, we also have the TJku application for Transjakarta, and then we also have the MRT apps as well. So I think it will be very good to integrate, which is have special apps for mobility in Jakarta, like in Berlin, that can be used by passengers to help their mobility, in addition to Jaki.
Yeah. All right, all right. So we have this super apps dilemma, right? In one apps we have lots of information, which is also beneficial, but on another sense, it is difficult to put information into details and also specific mobility recommendation in there. So you suggest to have different apps, and that would be under Jaklingko. and integration with the MRT apps. I think that is a very good idea. No, I moved to Sebastian. Sebastian, currently in your presentation, you mentioned there are 40,000 vehicles integrated to Jelbi, right? And then could you share with us, it's just been 2.5 years, and there was a great achievement. What are the challenges in the early implementation of Jelbi, and how do you guys manage to solve that?
Well, what we did is we thought a bit bigger than the app at first. So we always thought with an integrated approach with the apps and the Jelbi platforms, the Jelbi stations, the physical platforms in the city. And both of them create a different kind of value for MSPs or mobility service providers, as we call them. So, for instance, in the app, they gain an additional audience, they gain a additional channel for selling their services, but on the stations they gain spaces in the city where they can place their vehicles in good positions, which is something that is very scarce and very rare and sometimes even very expensive in cities such as Berlin. So we created basically this bundle of values for them. And then we invited all the mobility providers to more or less apply to be integrated in the Jelbi platform. Platform always meaning app and stations. So we started this invitational. Oh, there's an echo right now. We started this invitation, and we were surprised and delighted to see there was a lot of good response. So many of the local sharers actually applied to be integrated. We set some criteria that needed to be met. For instance, there needed to be a certain size of the fleet. All the services needed to be available via API. So it cannot be something like go to a store, pick up a key, and open the car. This does not work via app, obviously. So there are some criteria that need to be met. But besides that, a lot of the sharers here in Berlin decided to apply, and we already managed to implement a lot of them. And we still see that there's still providers joining, and we're very delighted to see that it's not just the small ones or the underdogs, but even the more the bigger, the more successful players, and they're maybe even known beyond Berlin, that are showing an interest to being integrated in the Jelbi. And we see this as a sign that we've really struck a nerve here, providing something of value not only to our users but also to the suppliers, because that's what we want to do. We want to collect the values, and we want to basically cater to the needs of both the audience, the users, and the providers on the other hand, because this is how we understand ourselves as a platform.
All right, thank you, Sebastian. Now I move to Dr. Yossapong. Dr. Yossapong mentioned this very notable ambition, 1% zero emission for new cars by 2035. And it also provides national incentive schemes for the citizen, right, in order for them to shifting from traditional cars to EV. And what interesting is there is also an existing apps in Bangkok, which is Haup, HAUP, that also provide car sharing and including EV in the car sharing in the apps, right? Can you tell us more about this? Because when I do a little research about the apps, a very interesting difference is between Jelbi owned by the government, right? But this how apps is owned by startup in Bangkok, right? So how do you see this? Should this kind of apps like how also owned by the government in order to make it more effective? Dr. Yossapong?
Right. Well, if you're asking me, right, this app is occurred by a startup company, by a private sector. It would be great if the governments can do these kind of things, like in Berlin. But when we look at the context of Thailand, most of the business by the government is not actually making. Most of the time, they're losing the money, like a public transport thing like that. So, if you're asking me if the government could do, if the government do, that would be more convenience, because when you are doing the EV sharing business, you need to put the infrastructure, you need to have the EV sharing, you should have regulation that all the buildings should have the EVs, the EV charging space, all the building. But and the government could be invest on that. But unfortunately, if we can do that, probably that will be already happened, But unfortunately, still could not happen. So, in my opinion, the company, the startup companies, they have the CEO, the founder, they are more motivated that people could share, the car, and the personal car is no longer the personal car. It's not exclusive anymore. It's more inclusive. As you can see, the inclusive societies and the EV car is still expensive, comparing with internal combustion engine car. So this kind of EV sharing would seem to be, for me, it's quite makes sense that people could share, and and the utilization of the car would be more than personal use. So my opinions, if we could using this EV sharing as a platform and built it by a startup company, I think that will be going quite, in my opinions, with the bureaucratics, with the way we running the governments at the moment, I would supporting this kind of startup companies.
All
But
right.
it depends on the
Great.
country. It depends on the country, I think. Yeah.
I would like to use this to clarify something.
Yeah.
We as a public organization, BVG, we operate the network or the platforms, and we make sure that we manage the stakeholders, we manage all the partner relations, etc., and we are the providers of the service. But the technology behind it is not programmed or developed by us. This is from our technology partner Trafi, which is a private company, which is a startup, which we have partners with. So I just want to clarify the impression that we might be the ones who actually own this technology to do this.
All right. So thank you, Sebastian, for clarifying that. So actually, you guys are the one who put this together, right, in order to make it is convenient for the public to use. But the technology company behind it, you mentioned in your presentation about Mofit and some other company, right? So it leads to my next question. From these 2.5 years of implementation, we've seen the result, and good testimony about this. If we would like to replicate, something like this in Jakarta or in Bangkok, what are the main lesson learned, or what will you guys what we can learn from the implementation in Berlin so far? Where should we start? Because talking about integration, there are lots of things to be integrated, multiple apps to be integrated, right? Operational to be integrated, company to be integrated. So where should we start?
Well, you need to realize that it can become a lot of work. So, as you mentioned, there's a lot of things to integrate, and I think it's important to visualize this holistically. So it's not just some technical step or technological step to connect some backends, and then you have a working platform. But you need to build relations to the providers. You need to basically show them what you want to achieve. You need to offer them something, like, for instance, we're doing with the Jelbi stations, like we're doing with the visibility in our app, like we're doing as a platform, doing the marketing for Jelbi as a whole, etc., where we're also advertising for the services, of course. So basically, you need to make sure you have something to offer to the market. And the market being the users on the one side, obviously, and the providers on the other side. So make sure you created something that is good and desirable for them. Then approach them and basically see what the requirements are from a technical side. There are lots of similarities, obviously, between different sharing services, but something that we have learned in the past 2.5 years, that rarely two are the same. So even like two bike providers or even two scooter providers it cannot be copy pasted into 1 and 2 integrations. So there's always like some specific requirements that the MSPs, the mobility service providers, want to see fulfilled before they want to join your services. For instance, could be a specific booking flow, could be a feature that they have in their app that they are very proud of and that they want replicated in the user flow of the Jelbi app. So make sure that you are open and listening to those requirements, and then moderate the process of saying, okay, what can we realize in Jelbi now? What can we maybe realize in the near future? And what is something that we cannot offer as of now? So there's the sort of transparency, what can be met, what expectations can be met. And I think this is a lot of our day's work. Then also you need to be prepared to do the maintenance, to do the running of both the platforms and the stations. It's obviously great to have a large network of Jelbi stations, but it's something that needs to be maintained. They need to be kept clean. If there are vehicles parked on there that are not supposed to be parking there, they need to be removed. We need to have an eye on if there are enough vehicles from our partners actually being redistributed there, so that there's always some relevant offer there. This is something that needs to be kept in mind for the Jelbi app. Obviously, there's a lot of community work that needs to be done. You mentioned the App Store earlier on. So we read everything, we reply to everything, we internalize the feedback that we get, we put this into our backlog, we develop basic roadmaps based on the feedback that we have. So this is a lot of work that comes not just from initially developing this, but actually running the service. And this should not be underestimated.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the improvement feedback I saw in the Play Store is about the payment integration, right? So just curious, how big is the team for Jelbi? How many people are there?
For the Jelbi team with apps and station specialists and some in between specialists for CRM, etc., we're about 20 people, 20 full-time employees right now. Plus some interns and some working students, but roughly like 18, 20 full-time employees who are just caring for Jelbi. But obviously there are a lot of people around us in BVG who are working with us together. For instance, there is the legal team, there is the marketing team. Those are not working for the Jelbi team, but obviously there are a lot of connections between them and us.
All right, excellent. Because it's a huge work, I believe a lot of people are involved. Now back to Ibu Faela. Faela mentioned that the solution is not always technology, right? You mentioned about the importance of wayfinding and also signage in the context of Jakarta, because there are some element of our society which is not really into the technology, right? So can you elaborate further about this, Ibu Faela? And also about the integration.
For example, during this pandemic, so it's to get access to public transport. So some of the public transport modes in here in Jakarta mainly requires to for the passenger to show the QR code or to show the vaccination certificate, but electronically. But not all of the passenger get the access for that. I think there should be, and then another like other group like disabled group, maybe they are hesitant to provide like informations to another people that maybe like they cannot, because they cannot make sure that whether they show their data to the scammer or to the official. So I think considering all of the groups of the passengers, because not all of the people have the access on or comfortable using technology. I think like other option for vulnerable group should be available.
Right. Thank you, Bu Faila. Dr. Yossapong, back to you. In our previous multi-stakeholder dialogue and policy dialogue on smart mobility, one of the pilot initiative is we call it safer sidewalks and intersections. You know, in Jakarta, we have a lot of sidewalks, right? But at night there is no lights in there. People feel insecure to use it, and also it's not convenient for them from their house to use that sidewalks to the station because it's not convenient for them. I want to ask you: is it the same case in Bangkok, or this no longer issues about making people convenient from first mile from their home to the nearest public transportation station?
Right. I think that's similar problem everywhere in developing country, right? The way they manage this kind of a footpath, but but one thing is that I'm not sure is that happening in in Jakarta or in Indonesia, that people using social media and showing this kind of bad managements on these kind of things and post it on the social medias, and somehow will be dished to the high level, and at some point they will try to fix it, and then I think because social media would be open in public so everyone can see it and it can list to a high level. So this kind of you know um, um, dialogue of in the social media probably would be helping us to improve the way that the local governments will manage this kind of thing, that I believe, and then thinking the way and respond more quickly, that kind of
Yeah.
problems, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. So yeah, actually, just to inform you, in Jakarta, actually, the Jaki apps that I mentioned, there's a feature there, which is Jak reports. So you can actually report any problems that is visible to you, be it broken pathways, garbage, and etc. So I believe that social media will push that forward and create a greater awareness and make it important to the public officials. So yeah, people should take action and care. So there's a question, a Q&A, and I would like to address this question to Bu Faela. How could informal transportation such as ojek, pedicab, etc., be integrated into multimodal transportation system? You know,
Um, yeah.
yes, please, Bu.
I think like the approach, like what we've done with Angkot, which is
Yeah,
that's a paratransit, that used to be like also like informal mode of transportation. So they are integrated into Transjakarta, which has like um, um, requirement to follow the level of service of Transjakarta. So to enable the seamless journey from the origin to destination, which has like a similar level of service. I think that kind of approach could also be expand to another mode, like uh, and then actually we could also provide the innovative solution as well. For example, like for the shortened distance, we can use a bicycle sharing system, and then maybe like Gojek could be electrify using electric motor vehicles, which could serve first and last mile connectivity as well, and then have more what is it called, um, a regulation or control to make sure the safety issues. I think that kind of integration could also be expand further. So then the main goal to shift the mobility from private vehicles to more sustainable public transport system could be achieved.
All right, all right. So let's learn from our successful angkot integration to Jaklingko, yeah, and then make it broader to other mode of transportation, the informal one, which is the pedicab and the ojek. All right. Thank you for the question, and for participant, you can ask more questions, and also you can raise your hands. No, I go back to Sebastian. Uh, in our multi-stakeholder dialogue, we also talking about policy recommendation, right? I just want to check: is there any specific policy or regulation during the first implementation or ongoing implementation of JLB? So in the government sector, we are dealing with regulation and policy, right? So is there any specific policy that you can mention that put Jelbi in place?
Well, we're basically in terms of BVG or Jelbi, we're basically on the end of receiving and implementing what is being decided politically. So basically, BVG
All right.
as a public transit
Operator.
corporation operator, yes, is tasked by the city or by the Senate to operate public transport, obviously. So what has been a great success for us is that Jelbi has been basically or it has been seen as a successful story so far. So for a time in the future, it is implemented in the contract between the city and the BVG. So basically, it is being purchased by us, if you want, from the city to provide the service in the future, which has been obviously a good success. So when it comes to regulations, I think we are something, with Jelbi, we are a bit more thinking into the future and trying to enable for a future that is not there yet, a future where it's maybe not as cheap anymore or convenient anymore to own and drive your own car in the city. Because right now it's free in many cases. Parking is, compared to other cities, is very, very, very low price in Berlin, which is, I think, historically developed this way. But if we envision a future where it's not as convenient and not as cheap anymore to use your private vehicle, Jelbi is there as an offer for people to use. You've been talking earlier on about push and pull factors. So basically, if there are push factors pushing people out of the usage of the private vehicle, whatever those may be, regulations, policies, etc., pricing, we want to be the pull factor. We want to be the option that people can turn to and say, okay, there I have a very convenient, very affordable, very easy to use offer that I can use. And therefore, speaking as of Jelbi, we're obviously very open and hoping for regulations that make it easier for people to make the switch from privately operated vehicles to shared and public mobility. But we're not developing recommendations for policymakers. This is basically not our role as the public service operator.
Yeah. So my follow-up questions about that is, can you share on how you engage multi-stakeholder in the city to make this implementation run smoothly?
That a question to BVG?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there are different people, different partner managers in the Jelbi team talking to different fractions, of course. There are, in the station team, there are some people working closely with parking operators or operators of spaces that provide the spaces for the Jelbi station for us, talking to them daily, negotiating about future usage of spaces, negotiating about basically furniture of the stations, talking about electricity for charging, etc., smart furniture, etc. From an app perspective, we have a partner manager who talks to the mobility service providers on a daily basis. What is going good? What is going not so good? Where do we need to make changes to the platform, to the interface? And then, of course, BVG has a lot of historically grown relationships to all sort of players in Berlin when it comes, for instance, to relations to B2B, to businesses who purchase, let's say, public transit tickets for their employees, like an annual pass or monthly pass, that are interested in using a multimodal service for that as well, not just public transit or not a company car, but multimodal services. So we are talking to those basically same stakeholders in that case, where BVG has traditional bonds to anyway, because we've been around here for 90 years. So this is what I meant earlier in the presentation when I said we're very well rooted in the city. Like, everybody knows us, everybody knows what we stand for, and this is a very good position to operate from.
Yeah, and the trust is already there, right? So back to you, Ibu Faela. So we have challenges, right? Physical integration, payment and fare integration, operational integration. How soon do you think we can have this Jelbi type integration? You are the expert in this field. How or what should we do?
Actually, it's already started with the formation of METJ, Jaklingko, ITJ. So the intention is to form all of those kind of integrations. I think Jakarta is already goes toward multimodal integrations, like maybe in that already implemented in other cities around the world, like Berlin, London, and also like other cities near Indonesia, which is Singapore, which has like um, multimodal integration, and then one entity which integrate all of the operators which provide different kind of services in that cities. So, but the biggest challenge now is we only we don't want to have only integrations between all of the modes, like MRT, LRT, and Transjakarta or commuter rail. But how can the integrations could be started in front of our house and then will be ended in front of our
Or office.
destination? This, yeah. So then having like a good sidewalk facilities. So we need to also have a collaboration with the public works to do that. And then another thing is having like bicycle facilities. That's also like another challenge that should be addressed. And then the last thing is the um, what is a land use yeah, the land use what is it called, development in Jakarta, because all
Yeah,
of us currently it's very difficult to afford to living in Jakarta. So another challenge is how to bring back people that live outside Jakarta now can afford to live in Jakarta. So the mobility could be
reduce. Yeah.
implemented only using walking and biking, not use a private vehicle or public transport vehicle, because no matter the infrastructure that we are provided in the future, if we are keep having like a sprawl development, so the infrastructure will be like more expensive, and it won't be effective. If we have like a concentrations of living, working, doing other activities around the city center, so then the improvement could be focused on that area, and then it's gonna be more sustainable as well.
Very interesting. So what you're mentioning is when we're talking about mobility, we also talking about where people live, right? Because right now lots of people are commuting, like myself. I live in Tangsel, right? So I use I use my own car or other mode of transportation to work in Jakarta. So I think the current discussion on vertical housing, affordable housing is very relevant to this topic as well. Thank you, Ibu Faila. All right. Let's see if there is another question from participants or there is raised hand. Not yet. So back to Bangkok, Dr. Yossapong. So how do you think Ibu Faila mentioned about the importance of having people live in the city instead of outside the city or the suburban? So it will reduce people mobility from where they live to where they work. Bangkok is, I think, similar with Jakarta. It's a very high populated city with very bad congestion, right? We should admit that. So how do you think? Is it something that Bangkok also dealing with? You are still muted. Yes, you are still muted. I can't hear you. So under your screen there is a microphone there. All right. So we have technical problem here. All right. Okay, it's good now. Oh, mute. All right.
Yeah, I got it. Somehow it just hang. Um, yeah, I think the when we have this pandemic, the COVID-19 is changing the way we are living here today. In the past, you have to for this kind of meeting, last 2 years, if I have this kind of conference, definitely I have to have to fly over to Jakarta to have this kind of conference, right?
Yeah.
And you could not get people to come. So, I saw many people from Bangkok to join your conference, and because of this COVID pandemics, they changed the way we live today, the way we communicate today, and when I talking in my presentation, we talking about first thing we need to avoid travel as much as possible. And during last 10 years, I tried to saying that probably we need some kind of system, but it's never be changing. But because of this pandemic forcing us, we have no choice, but we have to do it this way, right? So that happening, and this is happening everywhere in the world. I think people accepted the way we can work from home, we can use the out home as the office. Some company announced that they can allow people to work from home, work from anywhere, as long as you get the output done, right, the work done. So I believe that I even heard some people, moving out from Bangkok, but some not a lot, but I heard that things kind of thing. So maybe if we can this kind of new normal, it could be carry on, and I think during last 2 years, it seemed even today we try to get back to the office. People maybe feel that they can work at the homes no different when they are working in the office, and some people want to get back to work in the office because their home is not convenient. So I think people have much more choice. Either they want to work in the office or they can work from whatever they want to work. So I would say that this will be changing the way we live today, some this kind of pandemics, and I believe that will be stay as a new normal to us, the way we are communicating, and the way we are doing the conference will not be longer the same anymore.
Yes.
Like we have today.
Yes.
That's why I have some technical issue with my microphones a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes it happens, but I totally agree with you that we will carry on with this kind of mechanism, right? In fact, some of my people I know, some of my colleagues is moving to Bali, working from Bali, because not so many tourists in Bali, so they can rent a house and then working from the beach, So I think this mode will carry on in the future. But yes, I think it is also highlighted the importance of spatial planning on how we will make people move not far away from where they live to where they work. And now we are working on this virtual space right now. All right, I think we've been discussing a lot of things and topics, and also what we can learn from each other. I think we need to learn from Bangkok on this EV strategy, on how to. Hey, Dr. Yossapong, remind me again. Tell me again. You mentioned about national incentive for the use of EV. Can you specify what are those incentives?
Right. At the moment, they are working. Well, we have one called Excite Tax, which is basically based on CO2 emission. So the more the car you emit CO2, you have to pay more tax, right? But that's mostly by in that the OEM is the one who actually pay that tax first, and then customer to have to pay extra. But I think the government is working on some kind of the tax incentive. They are working at the moment, and this EV policy become national EV policy. It's not just so they indicate to all the ministry together, because when you are using in Thailand, when you're talking about transport, it's not only the municipal transport, and when you're using EV, you're talking about municipal the energies, and you're talking about municipal finance. So this kind of they're bringing all the ministry together and try to make it as a national agenda. So I think in Thailand we quite push hard on this EV. I heard that also the same, right, in Indonesia.
Yes. I believe in incentives, right? Incentives will move people faster towards the strategy. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Yossapong, Sebastian, and Faela for our discussion this evening. Now I would like to invite Mira again to join us for the closings. Thank you very much. I think we can learn a lot from each other, from each cities, and what to adopt, implement, and learn from each other. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mira.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much to all the speakers as well, to you, Pak Ramos, to having beautifully guided through the discussion. I mean, I do have to agree, it's been a very interesting and insightful discussion. It's and the perspectives from all the cities are definitely something to work on and maybe also apply to other cities. So we have definitely getting into towards the end of the whole conference, but nevertheless, we will have after this still an opportunity maybe to just have a little break and another in their lounge while you're at it, and we'll be starting with the next session at about 17:10. And that will be then the wrap up and the announcement of the online learning and exchange platform. So I hope that everyone will be then there, and we'll call you on again when we're going online. So thank you so much to all the speakers, to Bangkok, to Berlin, and to Jakarta, and also Pak Ramos. Thank you so much for sharing with us this discussion and perspective. So thank you so much, and have a good afternoon. To
Thank
all
you.
the audience members, please feel free to further network with speakers maybe in the lounge.
Thank you, Dr. Yossapong. Thank you, Sebastian and Faela. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Looking forward to see you guys in Bangkok and or maybe Jakarta. Bye.
Yes.
And you, Sebastian, in Berlin.
Yes, always.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.